All right, so everyone's ready to talk about the paper, to continue the paper? Please say yes. All right, good, thank you. Thank you. All right, good, thank you. So in the last time, I just want you to remind what we talked about, right? The last time we studied the paper. Who create jobs, venture capital, research grants, and regional employment in the USA. Okay? So, in this paper, simply speaking, I just want to remind you what you discussed, okay, with your team. Okay? So, this paper is very simple, very simple. Two types of money, public and private capitals. Okay? So, NIH funding and venture capital funding. It increased the number of jobs. Okay, number of jobs. Okay. So how this work differently? This is the central idea of this paper. Okay, so you had a discussion with the team with these three questions. Okay? With these three questions. So this time we are going to talk about these three questions today. Okay, so today is very simple. Okay, so we are going to have some conversation. That's it. Okay. All right. So first question. Let's talk about that. What is the story about? Please share the story with your team. So you ready? Anyone, any team can start. Okay. What is the story about this paper? What did you discuss with your team the last time? Jack, go ahead.
Yeah, there was when it's talking about the misestimations, and it talks about the way to address the issues of misestimations, and then it talks about the perspective of between the difference between explorative and exploitative, I guess is how you say it, and it just and it talks about the how it distinguishes between venture capitals and research grants, and it says that the exploitative is more of their investment patterns are the same as venture capitals in that it is short term, and is involved with being more efficient with the existing stuff within the organization or the capabilities that the organization already has, whereas the explorative is more grant based because it is focused on like the uncertainty and the long-term returns.
All right, good point. Actually, the central idea of this paper is starting from the distinction between venture capital and the NIH funding. NIH funding is a public capital, and venture capital is private capital. So venture capital, for example, venture capital should make money, right? They need to have capital gains to maintain their company. Okay? But NIH funding has different objectives. It's a public funding. So it focuses on different objectives. Okay? Venture capital objectives is very simple, making money as soon as possible. Okay? And NIH funding, it focuses on more basic science to develop knowledge. All right. So this is big difference between these two types of capital. So their objectives are different. So their investment patterns will be different. Okay. Their behaviors will be different. Okay. So these differences will impact the performance too. All right. So what is the performance in this paper? What is the dependent variable? What is the performance we are focusing in this paper? Number of jobs. Yes, number of jobs. Okay. Jobs in the area. So venture capital impact the number of jobs, okay, in the area, and the NIH funding also impact the number of jobs in the area. Okay. So how this difference? Okay. How this difference? Oh, this is the central idea. Then we have one more type of capital in this paper. Okay, that is intellectual capital 2. Intellectual capital 2. What is that? How this money, two types of capital, intellectual capital, interact with each other? Okay. How? Anyone? So two types of capital, money and intellectual capital. How these are interrelated with each other? Go ahead, Tanner. All right. So this paper, in this paper, okay, we talk about two types of capital, okay, venture capital and NIH funding. Also, this paper is talking about another type of capital, intellectual capital. All right, intellectual capital. So look at your hypotheses. Look at the hypotheses. There are some connections between money, two types of capital, and also intellectual capital. How did you understand this? How did you discuss with your team? So look at the hypotheses. We have more hypotheses to talk about.
I read somewhere that it said that intellectual capital is gradually increased over time. So if you own ideas, then you own the intellectual capital. So I guess that would be like copyrights or patents and stuff like that. So I guess eventually that could increase your revenue or something like that if you're able to you're the only one that's able to produce whatever that is.
All right. So intellectual capital actually impact the number of jobs too, because it gives a fundamental base, to boost the number of jobs. But this paper, look at the hypotheses. Okay, the third and fourth hypotheses. Okay, so actually in this paper, my perspective was very simple. I just thought about two regimes: high intellectual capital and low intellectual capital. Two regimes. In the high intellectual capital, actually the relationship between money and number of jobs, this relationship is stronger. Okay, stronger. All right. So that was the interconnection between venture capital and intellectual capital, NIH funding and intellectual capital. You got it? Okay. All right. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that with the some visual. All right. So we talk about that there. So venture capital, NIH funding are different, right? Different objectives, different patterns, different behaviors. Okay. So we understand this. Okay. So our job is how these two types of capital impact number of jobs. Okay. Then motivation of study. So I just asked two questions: how venture capital and research grants impact regional employment. Okay. Then this is the second question. What contextual factors shape these relationships? Okay. So there are some other factors that shapes the relationship between this. Okay. Relationship between this. So we will talk about this. Okay. All right. So this is conventional approach. Okay. So look at this. YI is the level of employment, and K, financial capital, money, level, and intellectual capital, and entrepreneurial capital, and electrons. Okay? So in this approach, okay, so researchers, economists, okay, strategists, all right, many people just thought, okay, so these types of capitals are just independently working to improve the number of jobs. Okay, that was a conventional approach. Right? Then, okay, my perspective was very simple. Okay, look, hey people, I think this works, but this works better. Okay, the only thing I want to add up is, okay, K and R is interact with each other. That means money and intellectual capital are interactive. So that means especially if there is a high intellectual capital in a region, probably money is working better. Okay, money is working better. Okay, it makes sense, right? It makes sense. Okay? So money and intellectual capital are interactive with each other. Okay, that's what I was thinking. Then I just add up this idea in this paper. Okay. What with adding KR, does that make it more accurate? Yes, that's what I'm thinking. All right. So KR means okay, the interactivity between intellectual capital and money. So just simply think about that. The region. If there is a better intellectual capital, better knowledge, okay, better knowledge basics. Okay? So it's already in that region, there is a fundamental of knowledge base. Okay? Then venture capital money go there. Then what happened? It's a better business environment, right? Better business environment. So new startups can create more business, okay? More number of jobs. Okay? So that's what I'm thinking. And NIH funding too. If there is no knowledge in that area, okay, then what happens? NIH funding, actually it takes a very, time, slow to create something. Okay. All right. So that's what I'm thinking. Okay. So I just add up this in action terms. Then actually my model like this. All right. So VC funding and NIH funding, okay, different objectives, different patterns, and VC funding increase regional jobs, and NIH funding increase regional jobs too. All right, but this effect. So think about this effect, this positive effect, are different depending on the status of intellectual capital. So in that region, high intellectual capital, this impact will be much stronger. And this is true. High intellectual capital region and NIH funding and regional jobs, this relationship will be stronger, salient. All right. These are interaction effects between VC funding and intellectual capital on regional jobs. This one is also the interaction effects between NIH funding and intellectual capital on regional jobs. Okay. So far so good. Better? Preston? Okay. All right. Based on this understanding, all right, I assume that, okay, based on this understanding, these are hypotheses. So hypothesis 1, 2 are direct relationship. Okay. VC funding increase regional jobs, NIH funding increase regional jobs. Okay. Then hypothesis 3 and 4, these are KR. These are interaction effects. the positive relationship between venture capital funding and regional employment level is stronger, right? When a great amount of intellectual capital is available in the region. Okay? So you clear with that statement? This hypothesis is about this. Okay? So VC funding effect is stronger when intellectual capital is high. All right. So think about that. Just the graph, okay? The effect are different, okay, depending on intellectual capital. This one too. This is a hypothesis 4. The positive relationship between national NIH funding and regional employment level is stronger when a great amount of intellectual capital is available. This is about this. All right. Then you need to have the solid understanding about the hypothesis. Then we can move forward to empirics. So it's all right. Everyone's all right. So far, so good. All right. So can I move to empirics? Numbers? All right. So based on this understanding, okay, we understand the conceptual model. Then I have some data here. So regional jobs, VC funding, NIH funding, and intellectual capital. Intellectual capital is the patents. Okay. So you can just check it out. So dependent variable is what? Impacted variable is what in this context? Number of jobs, right? Number of jobs. Okay. This year, next year, the following year, and so on. Okay, several years. Okay. Number of jobs, our dependent variable. Okay. Our independent variable, our key variable is venture capital funding. Yes, VC funding, and also NIH funding. And one more variable, interaction variable, intellectual capital. Okay, intellectual capital. So patents are intellectual capital in this paper. So we have 3 key variables, all right? VC funding, NIH funding, and intellectual capital, right? Okay. Then you don't need to think about these instrumental things. Okay. So I just I don't want you to confuse this. So it's a little bit more advanced techniques to talk about the causality, but at this point, this is out of focus. So you don't need to think about instrumental things. We just think about this. All right. 1 dependent variable and 3 independent variables. Okay. All right. This is descriptive statistics, and this is a tables I want to share. Okay. This is a regression table again. We talked about the regression table the last time. All right. So as long as you go to higher hierarchy of your organization in your future job, probably you will have a chance to look at this kind of tables, regressions. Okay. So you need to understand how to read this table. You don't need to be the expert of the regressions, but you should be able to read the table, okay? The tables. Okay. So very similar tables. Okay, we talked about the regression table in the last time. So look at this. These are just model, independent models. Okay, each model. Okay, so each model has its own equations. Okay, so I have 9 models in table. So each model is independent. It has its own dependent variable. It has its own independent variables. Okay, so look at model number 2. Model 2. Okay, because this model has all the variables. Okay, all the variables. This model doesn't have this variable, so I just want to focus on this model. Okay, number 2, model number 2. Okay, in the model number 2, the dependent variable is the level of employment T, right? level of employment T. Okay? And independent variables, okay, we have key variables, VC funding, NIH funding, VC funding, NIH funding, and intellectual capital. And these are the interaction variables between VC funding and intellectual capital. This is an interaction variable, NIH funding and intellectual capital. All right, these are regression coefficients we should focus on. All right, so the level of employment in Model 2, level of employment, okay, has positive, and significant. These stars are notations of these are significant regression coefficients. So VC funding has positive, significant regression coefficient. So our hypothesis 1 is supportive. VC funding positively or increase in number of jobs. NIH funding 2, positive and significant regression coefficients. So NIH funding increase number of jobs. Intellectual capital 2. All right, intellectual capital 2. The interest point is this. Okay? The interaction variable, VC funding, intellectual capital increase number of employments. All right, so hypothesis 3 is supportive. Okay? So, highly intellectual capital status, okay? The relationship between VC funding and level of employment is a salient, stronger, okay? NIH funding too, the interaction variable, NIH funding and intellectual capital, okay? Positive and significant regression coefficients, okay? So all the hypotheses, 1 through 4 are supportive, okay? This is how to understand this table, right? All right. Then look at some other models. Okay. This is dependent variable is level of employment T, but this is the level of employment T plus 1. T plus 1 means T is the year these capitals are invested. So T plus 1 means the next year. All right. The next year. So these capitals are invested in T, and we measure the level of employment, number of jobs in the next year. Okay, T plus 2 is the following year. T plus 3, and the year after, the year after, the year after. Okay, all right. So the T plus 1 through T plus 7, I'm just estimating the lagging effects. So afterwards, okay. Then the most variables shows, okay, positive and significant regression coefficient. So actually, the VC funding and NIH funding and interaction variables impact, okay, several years after the investments were already made. This is the story about these numbers. Okay. You okay? Okay. So clear? You understand how to read these tables? Any question? If you have any question, just ask me. So far, so good? Please say yes. All right. Thank you for confirming this. All right. So this is how to read this table. So we understand, okay, the numbers actually support our hypothesis. Then we can go forward, right? There are some other techniques to elaborate these numbers, but this is not the focus this time, all right? So let's move. Okay. So based on our conceptual model and our numbers, okay, I can say like this. Strategists should consider appropriate typology on financial capital, private and public capital. Okay? So private capital has its own motivations, public capital too. So if we consider these two types of capital in a homogeneous portion, like no difference, then probably our understanding has a problem, and also our strategy has a problem too. Okay? So we need to understand each type of capital. Okay? And also there are some interaction effects, financial capital and intellectual capital. So to maximize the impact, the effect of financial capital, we need to understand intellectual capital too. Okay? How these two variables interact with each other, then we have a better strategy, okay, to boost, to increase the number of jobs in that region. All right. This is pretty much about the paper. Okay. This is the flow. This is the story about the paper. Any question, comments so far? All right. So based on the understanding, okay, so now we have a better understanding about the paper, right? Story and numbers. Okay, so we have better understanding. All right, based on this better understanding, okay, let's move to the second question. Discuss the paper in the concept of competitive advantage, reduce cost, increase product differentiations. Okay, this is a very open question. So any perspective, any idea is welcome. So please go ahead. Anyone can start it. Okay. Based on this story, okay, what did you discuss with your team? So reduce cost, increase product differentiation, competitive advantage. Just apply this framework in this story. Then what implications?
Dr. Kong.
All right, go ahead.
What we talked about a little bit is like between the NIH funding and the venture capital, we said that there might be less of a commitment with the NIH funding. So if you are receiving the funding, you might be like more committed using the venture capital to like produce a product because you're trying to like please the venture capital funding, but with the NIH funding, it may be more like of like a longer term. You may not have to produce something like, right away. So they might be able to hire more people and like take a little bit more time, I guess. That's kind of what we talked about.
All right, it's a good point. Probably your point is very similar with the timing issues. All right, so you were talking about the timing issues between venture capital and NIH funding, right? Venture capital has a short-term focus, and NIH funding has a long-term focus. Okay, so probably if in the region there is a need for short-term focus, VC funding is more appropriate. Okay, in the long-term focus, okay, and NIH funding will be more appropriate. Okay? And then you can actually combine these two tiny issues. Okay, so if you want to develop a region, okay, then in the long-term perspective, you need to invest the NIH funding because it's a long-term project. Okay, and also if the basic science developed by the NIH funding and is matured, and then you need to focus on in some point short term, then you invest in venture capital funding which is short term focusing. Okay, so you can balance. You can balance between long-term and short-term with these two types of capital. All right, good point. It's a good point. Okay, I love it. I love it. Okay. All right, any other point? So reduce cost, increase product differentiations, competitive advantage. Any other comment? Any other discussions? So remind what you discussed with the team. How to reduce costs, how to increase product differentiations. It can be any perspective, community, VC, NIH, what, government. Any perspective is okay.
Could you also say that, like, by using this funding, you might be able to hire like some like top people that you may not have had the money for, so that could like help with the competitive advantage part of things?
So what perspective? What people are you talking about?
Maybe like if you maybe there's like a rival company who maybe has like an idea or some like intellectual like property that we were talking about. You could be able to potentially like buy, I don't want to like, I guess buy them out, I guess, potentially, I guess.
All right. So you are talking about competition in the region, right? So private companies, think about that. Corporations. Okay? If the venture capital is invested in the region, there is the competition, right? Competition. Then, actually, new companies which have better technology and better resource, then probably this company will survive, and the existing company will be just gone. All right. Then, in terms of the community, more efficient, more effective organizations will survive in that region. All right. That means it can reduce cost. All right. In the perspective of community. All right. In the perspective of community, and also in the perspective of new companies. Okay. So it makes sense. It can reduce costs. And also, okay, more resources will be invested and it improves the productivity. So that means increased product differentiations. Okay. So VC funding can impact new companies to increase product differentiation and also reduce costs. Okay. Then new companies, they can have competitive advantage. All right. But for old companies, the existing companies, all right, the competition intensity increases. So it's pretty not good, right? In that old company's perspective. Okay. But in the community perspective, in the regional perspective, probably this competition can increase, okay, product differentiation and reduce cost. Okay. Then those new companies in that community, in that region, be more competitive. Okay? So it's good. That's good. Right? So this is, we have multiple perspectives in this story, right? Okay. Venture capitalists, new company, and old companies, and communities. Okay. So there are many perspectives on this story. All right. And each perspective has own this framework, cost, product differentiation, something like that. Okay. All right, good. Anything else? Any other point you want to bring up with this question? All right, so the reason I brought up this question is very simple. All right, reduce cost, increase product differentiation, and create competitive advantage. This is a simple framework, right? This is a fundamental framework we will talk about again and again and again throughout the semester. Okay? All right, we want to talk about this framework because this framework is the central idea of strategy management. Right? The central idea, the fundamental idea was a strategy of strategy management is very simple. If you reduce cost, increase product differentiations, you create these gaps, and then you have a competitive advantage. You are doing better than others. Okay? This is the idea. Okay? We focus on throughout the semester. Why we are talking about the effects of private capital and public capital and intellectual capital, because I want to reduce cost, I want to increase product differentiation, I want to achieve competitive advantage. Okay? So we talked about two papers. Why you are talking about? Because I want to do this. Okay? And in this semester, we will talk about the environment, okay? Competitive environment, okay? The formulation of a strategy, the implementation of a strategy. Why we are talking about? Because I want to reduce costs, increase product differentiations, and I want to achieve competitive advantage. So this is a fundamental idea of strategy management. We are going to talk about this one again and again with each topic in the following. Okay. All right. Let's move to the last question. If you were authorized to allocate the financial resources, so you are the boss, then what are you gonna do? Any suggestion? So you can do anything with this capital. Then what are you gonna do? What are you gonna suggest for a better world? All right, Drew, go ahead. What about your idea? All right, Drew, can you turn on your microphone? Okay, all right. Okay. All right, understandable. All right. So, yes, between choosing NIH and funding and VC funding, okay, you can think about the characteristics of your projects, okay? The characteristics of your regions, okay? There are many factors that impact, okay, your decisions, okay? All right. Preston, any idea? What are you gonna do? Okay, all right. So we talk about the timing issues. So if you are the boss, okay, so you can allocate the financial capital. Then what are you gonna do? Okay. So if you wanna develop a region, okay, if you wanna develop a region, then we talked about that. In the long term, probably NIH funding will be invested first because it takes a long time to take the effect. Okay. So as time comes up, okay, when we need to focus on short term, probably we can allocate VC funding, okay, in the region. Okay. Then the basic investment to boost intellectual capital will be continued. Okay. This is, that's basic ideas. Okay. Also think about that. Think about that this way. Like Atlanta. Okay. So Atlanta area. So and also Boston area. Boston and Atlanta. Okay. Boston and Atlanta. Boston is very, very famous for biotechnology, right? So there are some research institutions, Harvard University and MIT and something like that. And also there are many, many venture capitalists too in Boston. Okay? So they have capital, they have money, okay? And they have intellectual capital too. All right? But in Atlanta, think about that. Atlanta is also great fundamental of intellectual capital, right? Georgia Tech, Emory, and also CDC. Okay, so it has it has great fundamental of intellectual capital, but not many venture capitalists. Not many venture capitalists. Okay? So we need to think about this. Okay, why? What makes these differences? Okay, then what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? So if you are the boss, if you want to develop Atlanta biotechnology industry sector, this sector, at this time, probably you need to focus on the short-term venture capital money, right? Because it already has very good fundamental of intellectual capital and the NIH funding. Okay, so probably okay. Then we need a little bit short term, and also we need to have a little bit applied science perspectives, applied science things in the Atlanta area to boost, okay, the number of jobs, something like that. You can think in that way, okay. There are many factors that impact your decisions, but I want you to practice this kind of thinking, okay, this kind of thinking, okay. All right. Okay, any other comment? Question, comment, anything?
What are the cases that we have to do in the book that's due on Monday?
Oh, on a Monday, should be. I want to emphasize this. In Monday, we are going to start a new chapter, right? We're going to start a new chapter, chapter 1. So you are supposed to submit the case before the class. Okay, before the class. All right. Okay, before the class, you are supposed to submit the case. Okay. And you are supposed to take the warm case during the class, at the beginning of the class. So you need to read the chapter in advance. Okay, and your chapter case is the title of learning from mistakes. Learning from mistakes. There are simple 2 pages, probably 3 or 4, and there are 2 questions, I guess. Okay? So you just need to answer 2 questions. Okay, and then submit it. And the other thing is the capstone simulations. Okay? So this is not an easy game. All right, capstone simulation is not an easy game. It's a little bit complicated game. Okay, so you need to familiar with the game, the simulations. The best way you familiar with the simulation is You just read the manuals. You can download the manuals from the website, okay? Very, very carefully and digest it, okay? Digest it. This is not a random game. This is not randomly determining your performance. Actually, you need to find appropriate information to have your performance, better performance, okay? So to do so, okay, you need to read the manual very, very carefully, okay? All right. All right. Any other question, comments? We talked about the paper and we are ready to talk about the book, the textbook, chapter 1 in the next week. So next week on Monday, we're gonna start chapter 1. Okay, we're gonna continue chapter 1 on Wednesday, and we're gonna start chapter 2 on Wednesday too. So Wednesday we will have some transitions, 2 topics. Okay, and Friday we're gonna finish. We're gonna finish up chapter 2. So in the next week we're gonna cover 2 chapters. Okay. All right. Any other question, comment before we going? No? All right, please say no if you don't have any question. Please make sure. All right, great. All right, good job. All right, you did a good job today. So we finished up our 2 papers. In the next week, we're gonna move to the textbook, chapter 1 and 2, okay? Chapter 1 and 2. So the due of your chapter case for chapter 1, Monday, and for chapter 2, Wednesday, okay? So no question, no comments, okay? I wish you have a great Friday, okay? I will see you in the next week. Bye, guys.
You are currently the only person in this conference.